Good evening, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk, and thanks for tuning in. As we have stated over the last 2 days, we're traveling, a little bit of work, a little bit of pleasure, and we are in lovely Las Vegas. Now, I don't know if you all have been to Las Vegas many times before, but definitely the ongoing COVID or post-COVID shutdown is a drastically different world than it was pre-COVID out here in Vegas. Normally as you were coming down the strip, the taxi drivers or the chauffeurs would try to avoid the strip in any way possible. And now you don't have to because there's no traffic there whatsoever. If you've been out here kind of pre-COVID as well, there was just a hustle and bustle of cars constantly coming in and out of hotels, and it was, just a constant hustle and bustle. So many people here, and here we are, early July. This place would be packed regardless of what was going on basically in the world. And I'm telling you, there is literally almost no one here in Las Vegas. Some of the hotels are open, but many are not. Many of the hotel restaurants are not open, and if they are, they have very limited capacity. They're following strict rules as it relates to who can sit where. Obviously, all the menus are on electronic. You have to look at them from your phone these days because they don't give you menus. It's just a very different world, and like I said, by far the most surprising thing is that there's just no traffic and there's literally nobody here. But hopefully things get back to normal. I was playing the craps table last night, and between shooters, people throwing the dice, not real shooters, they were cleaning the dice, although they have some weird little plastic partition between you and one of the dealers, but they wouldn't stop anything if one wanted to. But everybody was in masks, so it's a different feel, that's for sure. Hopefully the world gets back to normal. Hopefully Las Vegas gets back to normal. Because we've talked to a couple of people that work out here, and they're all quite concerned with being shut down yet again, and having their livelihood taken away. It's not good. There's hotels out here that have decided to delay opening. There's new hotels that have further delayed those openings as well. So it is a different world for sure. All right, but needless to say, that's not what you all came to Crime Talk to talk about, specifically as it relates to what Las Vegas looks like. Like I said, we're out here for a little bit of work, then we'll stay, do a little bit of pleasure here. We'll head back to the office first thing in the morning and head out, and then actually have to go take care of some matters up in the mountains in Colorado shortly after that. But so first of all, we tried to do a video last night, or I should say I tried to do a video last night, and I was sent by Frank with all the high-speed, low-drag camera and microphone equipment, and I managed to completely screw it up, and it just didn't work. So we did a quick one today to put a video up. I felt bad. I don't like not putting up something that I'm absolutely satisfied with before it goes up, but such is life. Sometimes you have to be able to adapt to the situation at hand, and that's what we did. Now, tonight there's a couple of things that I think are worth talking about. So obviously we put up the story today about Laurie Vale. Now, as everybody knows, usually that watches this show, but if there's someone out there who has not watched, Laurie Vale is now charged, along with her fifth husband, Chad Daybell, for basically obstruction, destroying evidence, as well as a bunch of misdemeanor charges with getting a couple of people to lie, not being truthful with the police. They're all misdemeanor counts, not that big of deal in the big grand scheme of things. I think a lot of people keep wondering if and when the prosecutors are going to be able to come down with enough evidence to bring charges as it relates to actually being able to charge somebody. Hasn't happened yet. We'll see if it actually, in fact, does happen. But the reality of it is, at this point, I think the longer it goes, the more difficult it's actually going to be to bring charges. And it would also appear that Alex Cox is the one who probably had something to do with the actual demise of these children. The question then becomes, can the prosecutors come up with enough information to show that there was a conspiracy if neither Chad Daybell nor Laurie Vale actually were involved in it, but perhaps there was a conspiracy related to the deaths of JJ and Tylee, whereupon these children ultimately wound up buried in the property off of Chad Daybell's house. And so, it is the type of thing where, like I said, the longer it goes, the less likely they're going to be able to do it. The reality of it is that as a criminal defense attorney and somebody who's done that for some 25 years, you'll always think, hey, if my client's going to get charged, or they have enough money whatsoever, or if they have enough evidence, go ahead and charge my clients. But they don't. And I've literally told people that hey detective, if you think you've got enough evidence, charge my client. If you don't, leave him the hell alone. And like I said, I think this may be getting to the point. I don't see anybody seeing how they could actually, short of finding something on the phone, some sort of admission, or if somebody actually, basically testifies, how can, what's the word I'm looking for? How are they going to be able to charge it? I just don't see it actually coming to fruition at that point. So, we'll just have to wait and see, but I think the longer it goes, the less likely anything's going to happen. And frankly, if I was their attorneys, I would be like, hey, let's get this thing over with. Either go in and plead guilty, or, bring him in, plead guilty, or set it for trial as quickly as possible. The issue as it relates to, getting them in trial right now is certainly the COVID. They have 6 months from the date of their arraignment until they're going to actually be able to get them to a trial, which is obviously now at this point after the first of the year. Most states are doing limited jury trials throughout, and so it's going to be interesting to see if that actually gets done. And like I said, we've talked about this before, but let's see, someone's having issues with some volume. Let's see if we can't fix that. Sorry, there's always something. There's always something going on, it seems like, but we'll see if that can't do that. Didn't I bring the microphone up? Did I bring the microphone up? Anyway, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, the volume will stay there. But like I said, we've talked about before, it's called compulsory joinder. If they're going to charge something, you can't just keep piecemealing these cases together. At a certain point, the courts are going to say, hey, you need to bring all these charges. You don't get to do them all kind of piecemeal as you tag them along. So let's see what they actually do. Now, the question we talked about today was it relates to Laurie Vale. We kind of asked the question, there's been allegations that have been raised that one of Vale's previous husbands may have, in fact, been inappropriate with not only Tylee, but with Ryan. And so it's just, the question begs the answer, because she clearly was trying to protect her daughter at a certain point. She gets divorced from this guy, supposedly moves to Arizona. He wants to, kind of follow her, be close to the kids. Once again, he dies as well of an apparent heart attack. But even then, the people that were kind of involved in that particular case were, what's the word I'm looking for? Concerned about Laurie Vale's beliefs that she held at the time. She was worried about ghosts and all this other stuff that she talks about when it relates to this whole cult thing that she's involved, alleged cult. We don't know if it's a cult, but she has some very profound beliefs going on. So the question, then becomes is, was she a good mother at one point? I mean, if she left this guy, if she was aware she was doing everything, or was this simply a case that happens in lots of divorce cases where it's contentious and one party doesn't want the other side to be around the children, that they would actually, fabricate stories about a particular person to say that they were being inappropriate with a child. I mean, hopefully that's not the case, but let's face it, those cases happen. I've seen them happen, where somebody wants to bring them up in the divorce matter, but certainly don't want to go to the police. Certainly, if you're going to go to the police, one would think that it's probably much more serious than if you just want to keep it in a divorce court, because it doesn't get to just stay in divorce court. So, like I said, I think the question that begs an answer is, was she a good mother at one point trying to protect these children? What was the defining moment that really changed all that, where, for lack of a better term, she either was allowed others to harm her children, was involved with it, and if she was in fact involved with it, obviously helped to cover it up, and if she wasn't involved with it, do you think she was just a stooped person? I find that a little hard to believe. But if you were, why wouldn't you have gone to the police, immediately if you thought something would have to do with it? Like I said, there's something very, very weird to me. Let's see here. Very simpler to me. Okay, Scott. Misdemeanor. No. Okay, Mindy 66. She has 2 cases right now. Laurie Vale has 2 cases. As you may recall, she had the original case, which was the desertion. And then in that desertion case, she had a couple of misdemeanor counts where she got her friend to lie to the police. She wasn't candid with the police. Those charges have been dropped as it relates to the felonies in those particular cases. Then she has the 2 other cases regarding the delay, hindrance, and destruction of the evidence. She's charged with a conspiracy with Chad Daybell, and the indictment says, or the complaint information actually says, with those known or unknown to the state, i.e. Alex Cox. So she actually has 2 cases going on right now. So hopefully that clarifies it. That's why the other day when we put out a video, she's down to misdemeanor charges in that first case, which carried up to 14 years for each charge, and now those were gone. And my theory of that is somewhat, I wouldn't say it's different, I think it just makes complete sense. If she's charged with abandonment of her children, that abandonment took place when she stopped caring for them. The fact that her children are dead and she took no affirmative defense to help the police and even lied about it, I think shows abandonment. And the classic example that I provided to you is that if I steal your car and I don't have permission to take it, the elements of the offense are that I took your car without your legal permission or justification. Just because the car is returned, even if I totaled it or if I cleaned it, it doesn't mean that the crime goes away. The crime still occurred. So I'm not sure why they dismissed the charges as it relates to the abandonment, as it relates to Laurie Vale, and particularly, I think they made a mistake. I mean, why would you not want the complete pressure coming down on her of all these particular charges. It wasn't going to get dismissed at a preliminary hearing because the standard is so low. So we'll have to wait and see. Hey, there's a question here that just came up. As a defense attorney, what % of criminals do you think can truly be rehabilitated to function safely in society? Really good question, because that's what judges struggle with every day. I think statistically, it shows that probably 30% of all people that get in trouble will get in trouble again. There's also some evidence out there that shows that if somebody engages in violent crime, that they'll probably continue to engage in violent crime unless they got some help, or basically till they get too old that they can no longer engage in that conduct. I've seen that. So, I mean, that's the percentage of it is. I mean, what it is. Now, as a defense attorney, I like to think that most of my clients have made minor errors, that it is a complete aberration, and they will not do it again. However, sometimes when you have clients that you're going to see them back. You know that they're not going to be able to complete probation. And it's usually, in my experience, with drug or alcohol issues or mental health issues, if they're not getting the help that they need, you're going to be back. That's just the way it is, unfortunately. But I think most people that get in trouble, if somebody gets a DUI or something along those lines, that it doesn't mean that they're destined for a life of crime. But if they're committing crime at a very young age, that's usually a pretty good factor that they're probably going to be involved in the adult system. Not every case, but statistically, I think that will show that, well, that's true. They keep track of a lot of those numbers. So, says Laurie and Chad are in their forever homes. Donna, Bowie, Hildebrand. They may be. We'll see. We will have to wait and see. Let's see here. Some of these disappear. Scott, as a defense attorney, is there any kind of case that you will not take? Yeah, no. As long as most people can pay, I believe everyone is entitled to a defense. I guess there's always that one case that if I thought that I couldn't zealously represent somebody, I wouldn't do it. Obviously, if there was a conflict of some type, obviously I couldn't take that particular case. I've had that happen before where you're like, oh, this is going to be a fun case. It's going to be really good. And then you find out that you've represented a witness in the case, and guess what? You have to get off because of the issues that we've talked about in our previous videos as it relates, for example, to the Daybell and Means. You've got Mr. Means, who is Laurie Vale's attorney, stating in court on the record that he, as an officer of the court, knows that she's not going to flee because, well, she would be with Chad Daybell, and I represent Chad Daybell as well. Yeah, at that point, he's done. And then when the court asks you, and we did a video about this, I guess about 2 weeks ago maybe, where the court specifically asks him, have you ever represented the co-defendants? And he says no. Something is not right. I even went back and found a video where he represented to the news that he had just recently been retained by Chad Daybell. So I personally think there's an ethical issue there. I think he's going to have to get off. We'll wait and see for sure. Scott, do police ever use psychics? I think sometimes the police, if they have a complete dead end, will use them, but it's not admissible in court. It's simply not admissible at all. Scott, in your opinion, do you think murder will be charged for either Laurie or Chad? Well, obviously, nothing's taken place up to this point, so no. The question is, in good attorney fashion, is maybe. And the maybe becomes from the fact that there may be something that comes up in the future, maybe something on the phones. I mean, we know that the FBI tracked the cell phones of Alex Cox. and they were able to determine the location. They ultimately determined that that is where the children were in fact buried, and they found those children. So it's possible. Now, does it mean that they have enough? And like I said, we've talked about this. I know lots of people have gut feelings, and lots of people have information that they just know is true. But it not only has to have that gut feeling. There's many a prosecutor out there who says, in my gut feeling, I know that this guy is guilty, but they just can't prove it. And here in this particular case, which is why I'm a little surprised that the district attorney dropped the more serious charges against Vale, which were the desertion charges, is because that's more pressure that you have on her to roll, to basically come forward and say, listen, you're close to 50 years old? We can lock you up and put you away for the rest of your life. So if you would like to ever be out and see the sunshine here, it's about time you may want to start making a deal. That's normally what a prosecutor will do, and he'll use that to say, listen, you're looking at a ton of time. Right now she's looking, got 3 misdemeanors, looking at I think 2 years there, and 5 years is a maximum penalty as it relates to the conspiracy, 5 on each, but that's 10. Let's face it, as well as I do, they're not going to serve the entire sentence of good time and early parole, things like that. What has she got to lose? She figured, I'll ride this out. I'm sure her attorney's telling her to keep her mouth shut, like anyone worth their, weight, worth their salt as an attorney would be telling him what to do. So it's, I don't know. At this point, I'm getting more and more skeptical that there are actually going to be homicide charges, murder charges against those two. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong, but right now there just hasn't been enough evidence. Clearly, the prosecutors believe they have enough evidence to show a conspiracy to delay, hinder, destroy evidence, but simply not enough before, to say that they were actually involved in the actual murder. So that's, a little disheartening, so to speak, but you got to go with what you got. You got to go with what you can prove, and that's what the DA wants to do. And in actuality, I think maybe they're hoping. Donna, we hope you're wrong. Me too. But that's the thing. The truth or a closed version of it will come out in litigation, and that's the important thing. But if you don't have enough evidence to bring the case, there will be no litigation, and there's nothing to go forward on. But clearly something happened. Now this woman, she obviously has a somewhat long and tortured history relating to the mere number of husbands that she had. Doesn't mean that if you have a lot of spouses, you're a bad person or you're a murderer. But clearly something went wrong where she was constantly just looking for somebody else that was going to, she was going to be a follower of this guy, Chad DeBell. I'm not sure what the, what the big thing that fascinated her in any way. It's something went wrong. Something, she may have been weird, but was she killing people? There's a lot of people that think maybe she has something to do with all these husbands that wind up winding up dead. Whether through natural causes, and obviously the Tammy Daybell situation is one of great interest to me. I think that's very interesting. I think the police in that particular case, or the coroner, completely messed it up. So we'll see. Nicole, no conspiracy to commit murder charges. Not yet. No, nothing at all. The only thing is conspiracy to delay the discovery of evidence. That's it. Let's see. What about all the mental illness, insanity, and required time to psych unit in the prison system for Laurie and Chad? We've discussed, not guilty by, reason of insanity. I think Idaho is actually one of the few cases or states that doesn't really have that. But, we've talked, if I was the attorney for either one of them, I would be having them go to a psychiatrist and figure out what is making them tick, what makes them think that they're getting something, why do they believe so adamantly that the world is coming to an end, I think, here in the next couple of days, or maybe it's already passed. But, what makes somebody believe that so much, or that they think that their kids are zombies and that they need to die? That's just stuff that's kind of directly out of, movies and science fiction books. And it's simply, I don't get it. Where people have kind of this, what's the word I'm looking for? This escape from reality, so to speak. And, like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to, but I've done that case before where I have a couple clients who thought the whole world was coming to an end. And then, unfortunately, a couple of children passed away. They were never able to determine exactly how those children died. But, the district attorney had lots of evidence. They actually thought that the world was coming to an end and they were going to just kind of hang out until that happened. So, it's a little fascinating to me, just because I dealt with that. And as a good psychiatrist will tell you, just because somebody has a strongly held belief, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are in fact not competent to proceed. So that's the way it is, Take a couple more questions here. Scott, do you think they gave Melanie Gibb a deal? Seems like it couldn't have been charged. She could have been charged with something. I don't think they gave her a deal at all there, Mindy. She is basically listed as the person with whom Valo tried to get to lie to the police, and she told the police she wasn't going to do that. I don't foresee any charges with her in any particular way. She is a cooperating governmental witness, and there's no reason to charge her. So, we'll just have to see. Okay, let's see here. Self-proclaimed prophecy, Laurie and Chad's words enough. Yeah, that's just weird. I mean, I'm saying it's weird. People can have lots of beliefs that they don't necessarily agree or disagree with, but that's just the way it is. Angela, recover your first big win today at poker. Yeah, no, didn't win. We were playing craps. Everything you need to know about life you can learn by playing craps. There's lots of different bets out there, but if you can't win if you don't play. Sometimes your own destiny is in your own hands. Sometimes it can all go away by the acts of others as well. You got to spread your bets around. Don't get too crazy. Be a little conservative. And, like I said, sometimes you can get a good run, but like all good runs, things come to an end. But that is why I think craps is a good lesson in life, because let's face it, life is in fact a gamble, but you got to go forward, so you might as well try to be successful at it for sure. So a couple things going on else out there in the world today, other than the Valo case. But if we get a lot of comments by that, we'll do that. But how about this case out of Washington State? A couple of kids out there up on the beach, and they're making TikTok videos. The TikTok stuff that the United States government doesn't want you to use anymore, because you will be basically all your information, identifying information, will go to the Chinese government since it's owned by them. Apparently they've shut it down in, I think, Hong Kong as well. Anyway, the kids are out there taking videos of TikTok to do a TikTok video when they notice a suitcase that apparently has been washed up on the beach, and it smells really bad. So these teenagers call the police. Nobody really responds that quickly because they don't take it necessarily that seriously. As it turns out, there are two people in the suitcase, and they've been identified. One is a woman by the name of Jessica Lewis, who's 36, and her boyfriend, Austin Wenner, Wenner, who's 27. When the officers opened the suitcase, they had discovered that the female, Jessica Lewis, who was 36, was shot once in the abdomen, and then Austin Wenner, the boyfriend, 27, had been shot multiple times. So clearly, not natural causes. They did not, do anything that would have got them there by themselves. I cannot think of any sort of home accident or fishing accident that would get them washed up in a suitcase. Apparently the couple had been missing for a while, but no real police reports have been made. So that's interesting. We're going to follow that story because I think that'll be, well, it's interesting now, but if they can actually get, something as it relates to finding out who did it, that would be interesting. Maybe it was, maybe there's ex-boyfriends, ex-spouses, ex-girlfriends. Who knows what would be going on about that. And then also you have the case of Miss Maxwell, Jilin, depending on how you pronounce it. I've heard about 6 different pronunciations. I get corrected all the time regarding the pronunciation of people's names, particularly that of Miss Maxwell. And so we'll just refer to her as Miss Maxwell, so I try not to offend any people out there, because you would not believe some of the things that people get offended about. It's crazy. No matter what you do, you try to do your best, and there's some people that will never be satisfied. But that's okay. We appreciate it. I have pretty thick skin. We can take a lot of constructive criticism, and that's what we take it as. So Miss Maxwell made her way from New Hampshire, from her nice little country estate that through a series of limited liability companies and some friends, she was able to, set up shop or try to retire. She's 58, she's getting to that age, she probably wants to live a quiet life. Now she has to deal with the whole fact that she could potentially wind up spending the life in prison, the remainder of her life in prison, for the alleged crime of trafficking in children for her ex-friend, confidant, Jeffrey Epstein. Yep, we went ahead and said his name or Epstein. I know, depending on, I think it's Jeffrey Epstein, because he obviously had a thing for young girls. And you can't have a thing for young girls because you go to prison. That's against the law. It's just creepy. And what is he, at the time, I think all the stuff is really going down. He's like 40, 50-year-old guy. Let's face it, that's just not right. There's lots of, young girls want to hang out with young guys. They're not necessarily looking to hang out with older guys. That's just a little weird and creepy. Anyway, it's alleged that Miss Maxwell was the one that was arranging for these young individuals. And if you watch the Netflix documentary about that, it appears as though she was literally trolling the high schools and getting these young girls to come over and, give Mr. Epstein his massage, and where things allegedly took place that were completely inappropriate. And it becomes very clear that Jeffrey Epstein received a great deal. If you were his attorney, you were probably thinking you're the greatest attorney of all time, because this client should be going to prison for the rest of his life. And whether it be through political connections or maybe the case was falling apart, who knows exactly what reason, but he gets to plead guilty to some state prostitution charges versus going to federal prison for probably the better part of his life. So yeah, when you watch that documentary, and you may say, oh, it's very one-sided, but we didn't really get to hear from Mr. Epstein's side because obviously he was, he's now deceased. A lot of people still have questions as to what happened to Mr. Epstein when he was in the detention facility there in Manhattan. And yes, Jilin, is that right? Jilin. I think that's how somebody told me you're supposed to pronounce it. So Miss Maxwell is making her way then to the great state of New York, where she will be held in the same facility where Mr. Jeffrey Epstein was being held, and she will be under great care and protection by the same people that were there to protect old Jeffrey. Now, what can you do? All right, do you think they're going to actually be able to do it? We'll see if she gets out of custody. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? There's a lot of people out there that should be very, very scared of what she has to say. There's been comments that perhaps she had copies of everything that Jeffrey Epstein had in his little collection of goodies to basically blackmail people and to be able to protect himself when he got into a jam, so to speak. Maybe that's what he used to get out of the jam down in Miami. It didn't quite work out so well for him in New York. But one would also maybe think that he knew what was going on. Obviously, he was doing his will. Like I said, this is the Miss Maxwell watch. We're on day 6. She apparently appears to be safe. So we'll just have to wait and see. We'll see if she makes it to day 7. If she gets out, she could have problems. She's been hanging pretty low. A lot of people are trying to find out where she's been. There was talk just last week or 2 weeks ago. People thought they spotted her on a boat that was owned by the estate of her deceased father. And it's interesting when you do a lot of research on Miss Maxwell. Her father died in what was referred to as a boating accident down there in the Bahamas or the U.S. Virgin Islands. And it was determined to be a suicide. And Miss Maxwell was absolutely adamant that he would not have done that, and that he had to have been murdered. So I wonder what her thoughts are on old Jeffrey Epstein, and she's got to be quite scared. And Miss Maxwell, she has very, very competent attorneys. She's got resources. She hired some top gun attorneys. I'm familiar with those attorneys because they're based in Denver. And so, like I said, I'm familiar with the attorneys that they have. She's got the resources to do it. Very, very smart people on her side. But they also know basically if they have to fold them and to cut a deal. A lot of people think that, Miss Maxwell was basically the madam, that she was hanging around for the lifestyle, to hang out with the people. I mean, this woman was attending Chelsea Clinton's wedding, for God's sakes. It's somewhat odd to me why she would be at that wedding unless somebody knew her and was close to her. I mean, think about it. How many weddings do you get invited to people that you don't necessarily know or have a relationship with? Unless you're a +1, more than likely, pretty unlikely for sure. So you just never, ever truly ever know what's going on. But I would love to be at the proffer, okay? So let's talk about this. Miss Maxwell has been indicted, all right? She's been indicted in federal court. And so when she comes to federal court for her advisement, it is what they refer to as a detention hearing, discovery conference, and an arraignment. all right, the government can say, we are going to keep her in custody. We think that she is a danger to the community, and more particularly, she is a flight risk. She has access to money, multiple passports, and they cannot guarantee where she's going to be. It sounds as though there was a lot of surveillance on Miss Maxwell. Apparently so that the people in the New Hampshire residence town that she was living in were complaining about what turned out to basically be surveillance planes flying overhead and so low. And there's been some information that came out that she would, her arrest may not have come as early as it did, but for the fact that the neighbors were getting frustrated by all of the aircraft that were basically flying over her residence. So the FBI knew where she was. So that'll probably be an argument that the government will have to respond to by the defense attorney, saying, you guys knew where she was. She can turn in all of her passports so that she can't travel. It happens all the time. I had clients that, we're going to release you, but if you're out, you have to surrender your passport within 24 hours. And everyone's going to know where she's flying unless she flies private aircraft. But even then, where's she going to go? She's been indicted. They would extradite her. And so when she shows up for court, they'll have a detention hearing. That usually will take place within 3 days. They'll also have a discovery conference where they'll say, we'll produce all of the discovery, which could be voluminous, large videos, etc., all that type of stuff, reports, everything more than likely in the Epstein case, everything from Florida, from New York, etc. And then she'll actually be, they'll turn over all that discovery, and then they'll proceed to an arraignment. In federal court, the government, if you're in custody, has 70 days to get you to trial. Now, when the government brings an indictment, they're supposed to be ready. They're saying, we have everything we need. We will be prepared to take this individual to trial within 70 days. There's no way that the defense will be prepared to proceed within 70 days. So at that arraignment, which they'll waive any further reading or advisement of the charges, they'll enter a plea of not guilty. And depending on the jurisdiction, in Denver, where I practice primarily, you enter a plea of not guilty, magistrate does his or her thing, signs the paperwork, then they say go up to the judge's chambers and go get dates. They'll set a trial date within those 70 days, but in the federal system, if you file a motion, that stops the counting of the 70 days. And then you can move for a motion for complexity, which says, hey judge, this case is so complex, there's no way that we could get to trial. And obviously we have to protect the defendant's right to a speedy trial, although respecting the right that the people have a right to a speedy trial just as much as the defendant does. But in this case, it would be a mismanagement of the court systems, and it would result in an unjust situation if she were allowed to be forced to go to trial within 70 days. So they have that. You can also move for what they refer to as, the judge can find as complex, or you can move for an ends of justice continuance, same thing, where you say, judge, we think that it'll be, we need 6 months to be able to go through all this information and be prepared. And once again, that's even also an artificial date down the road, because they'll set a motions deadline date, and once again, once motions are filed, that tolls speedy trial unless and until those motions are resolved. So even though there's a trial date, the chances of actually going to trial pretty slim on those first 1 or 2 settings in most jurisdictions. So I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. And nobody wants anybody to get hurt in the criminal justice process. But I truly believe, and the government's not going to let somebody make the same mistake twice. Either A, let them be killed while in custody, or allow them to commit suicide. They're just not going to do that. And as we stated in our video today, Attorney General Barr has personally called the director of the Bureau of Prisons to make sure that nothing bad happens to this woman while in custody. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, so anyway, I appreciate everybody for tuning in today. And like I said, I apologize for not getting a video out yesterday because, well, it just didn't turn out well at all. I messed up all the technology, as I almost did tonight, trying to use the same high-speed, low-drag equipment. And then we just said, screw it. Let's just go with the easy push-button iPad, and we'll set it here. And then we have it here in this lovely suite, which we'll get to in just a minute, because this is not my lovely suite, for sure. But it is lovely, I must say that. But so we've had a sponsor for the last couple of weeks, all right? If you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, I'm telling you, just like I tell my clients, I would not give you bad advice, okay? I tell my clients, it's like I am giving advice to my kids. And what parent would intentionally give bad advice to their kids? They're not going to do that, correct? Well, same thing about you all. I wouldn't give you bad advice to do anything. But if you go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, you can sign up for a background search subscription. You can search as many people as you want. You can do it anonymously, all right? And listen to this testimonial that we got the other day. It was in the comments, completely unsolicited. I think Frank put it up, it removed the person's name. He said, thanks to Scott's background search, I just found one of the guys that was interested in me had sexual abuse of minor charges that he lied about. This person goes on and says, I feel so disgusting for talking to him, let alone cuddling with him. Okay? That is an example of why everyone should have a criminal background check. Okay? You can do this. You type in the name, you pay your subscription. You can cancel anytime if you're not satisfied, but you will be satisfied. You'll be glad you had it. And then you can get this report, and it'll have phone numbers. It'll have social media information, email addresses, criminal history, property records, whether somebody is a registered sex offender, things that you want to know if you are in fact dealing with somebody that you don't know about. So go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, type it in, get the subscription, you won't be disappointed. Now, one more thing I wanted to talk about, obviously we're talking about the federal system with Miss Maxwell, we've got the Valos, everybody going on. There was this attorney down in Florida today that showed up in court in a 3M suit with rubber gloves because he was required to appear in court for his sentencing. Obviously, he had rubber gloves on, he had a face shield, he had a professional respirator on as well. And I guess the question is this the new society that we are going to be accustomed to? Out here in Las Vegas, everybody has to wear a face mask. Hasn't particularly bothered me to put that on, but when you start asking people to come to a courtroom, to sit in a crowded courtroom, to go through a jury selection process, only to go back during recesses and ultimately deliberate with 12, 13 people in a small room, are they all going to show up in hazmat suits? Is this the way we're going to conduct jury trials? Witnesses should have to have their face exposed because that's one of the greatest truth-telling things about an individual, whether someone can judge whether they're being truthful or not, is simply their facial expression, their eye movements. And if they have their mask on, you're not going to be able to see those types of things. Those are important. Think about it. It's common sense. But now courts are actually in the process of delaying jury trials, but we cannot delay jury trials forever. Accommodations are going to have to be made, whether they need to start building bigger courtrooms, face masks, clear face masks for jurors, perhaps a face shield. I've seen a lot of those out here in Las Vegas, actually. But they're going to have to do something because we cannot continue to have court proceedings. We cannot be able to continue not having jury trials. It is going to have to go forward, or pretty soon people's right to a speedy trial is going to be infringed upon, and they're going to have to be released. And you may not like some of the people that are going to be released if the state doesn't start making some accommodations. One of the stories we also talked about in the last couple of days is the amount of violent crime and how it has gone up exponentially since literally this time last year. Blame it on COVID, maybe blame it on people being cooped up. They don't want to call the police, taking matters in their own hands. Who knows exactly? But the reality of it is that crime is going up. People are taking matters into their own hands, and it's resulting in lots of bad things taking place and lots of people, being charged, and lots of people, unfortunately, dying. If you look at New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, the numbers are going through the roof. You wouldn't want to be there. So, I mean, it's a dangerous place. It's a dangerous place. Shelley Tarbert, Zoom jury would be great. Then they could just Google everything during the trial, like my kids do for school. Yeah, well, that's two problems. You can't do jury trial via Zoom, at least not a criminal trial. And jurors are not supposed to Google anything about the case or the members of the parties, at least while the case is ongoing. That could be illegally tainting the jury pool, and you can't do that. That would be bad as well. So that's what I'm saying. There's things that people need to do, and one of them is constitutional right to a jury trial. Angelina, Mr. Reich, are there rioters in Vegas? I have not seen anything. I have not seen much of anyone out there on the streets today. We were walking on the strip coming back today, and like I said, there was literally no one out there out on the strip. It's a strange world. I've never been to Las Vegas when there have been so few people ever. Every time I've ever been to Las Vegas, there's always something going on here, but not anymore. It's scary. Like I said, I know these people are getting a little concerned out here because there's so many people that are dependent upon the casinos, and they don't build these things with their own money. They use banks, and the banks loan the money, and then the banks may not want to own these buildings, so they'll work something out, kind of after the great financial issues back in 2008-ish or so, that a lot of the banks took over and they were able to sell them. But it's kind of similar situation, and it just trickles down where people who are working can't make their mortgage payments. Means they don't go out as much. Not everybody can work from home forever. That's for sure. I'm sure there's probably lots of people gaming online because they can't come to Las Vegas. That's for sure. But I can tell you a crime was committed last night on the craps tables here at the Cosmopolitan Hotel, and I was robbed. I was robbed of lots of money at the craps table because nobody could roll anything other than a 7. It was rather disheartening. Perhaps there was something with the dice. I don't know. Perhaps it was a conspiracy against me. I'm not exactly sure. But all I know is I left with a lot less money than I had when I started, for sure. Now, this beautiful suite, you may not be able to see this suite where you are, but this is just the main living room, I guess, here, right? And I don't know, I think this place goes around for what has it got? Three rooms or something? It's a pretty nice little suite.
Pretty sure if you click up here, you can flip the camera.
Oh yeah, I could probably flip that, right? Yeah, we can flip the camera, right?
Oh.
We're not.
Oh,
Anyway.
Right here. Never mind, I guess not.
Anyway. Oh yeah, bottom left. Oh yeah.
There you go.
Oh yeah. So here's the little, everybody has, because most people have this every time you go to the, your hotel, right? Nice little suite here, little dogs. Got those guys marching out there. Anyway, it's a beautiful Beautiful suite. There's three rooms in here.
4 bathrooms.
4 bathrooms. It's pretty nice. Looks like here's the master bedroom. Looks like somebody sleeping in there. I can't tell. Oh, this is a little butler pantry.
It's a dirty room.
Another room there. Pretty nice little spread, for sure. But yeah, another room there. Pretty nice. But anyway, so this is the room of Scott, who coincidentally is named Scott. He's a friend of mine, and he is downstairs playing, and he is at the big jackpot because he gambles, and he gambles high stakes slots. So I'm thinking we should finish here, go down there, and basically invade his live show. But if you go to the big jackpot and go to the live, when I sign off here, go down and put in the comments that Crime Talk is coming down to see him. And let's go invade his show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Sorry for the technical issues over the past couple of days. I'm just not that good at that stuff unless I've done it about 100 times. And unfortunately, haven't done it 100 times. I usually have much more technically savvy people helping me out with those types of things. So go to thanks for watching Crime Talk. I appreciate that. Let's go to the big jackpot. Go to that when we sign off, and tell everybody in their comments that Crime Talk is coming for them. And we'll go photobomb his live show that's going on here right now. Tell him what you think of his suite here, because I assure you my accommodations are much more humble. But hey, he spends a lot more money gambling than I do. So hence the name, the big jackpot. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll still do a video, even though I'll be traveling back to Denver. Go to CrimeTalkSearch.com, sign up for that subscription. You won't be disappointed. I'm telling you, you need to know who you're dealing with in the world. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful evening, and we will see you tomorrow.